Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 16th of January 2025. These are the stories that we'll try to highlight, decipher during the course of our show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the day 467 as far as the Israel-Palestine conflict is concerned. And of course, the biggest news was the peace deal that was agreed upon by both the factions. The fact, unfortunately, is that for the moment this peace deal is in the Israeli cabinet for approval, and Netanyahu has held up this cabinet vote as far as this peace deal is concerned. Only once the cabinet ratifies it, accepts it, passes it, will this deal become finalized. So we are still waiting from the Israeli side, despite the fact that they had agreed to in the very beginning for that, and that is why the Qatari side had announced it, and there was a lot of jubilation within the Palestinian side as well, because it ended the days and hundreds of days of atrocities and brutalities and genocide that had been going on. We'll be highlighting different aspects of that peace deal and how the reaction from the world over has come in, and also the brutalities that continue as we speak, as 81 plus people have been killed since the announcement of the peace deal is concerned. This is our first segment. Our second segment of the day, ladies and gentlemen, is Joe Biden's last address to the nation. In his farewell address, he has indicated many important things. First of all, he talks about an oligarchy that is taking shape in America. He also talked about a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few that is going to endanger our democracy. Why now? Why not before? More and will be deciphered during the course of our second segment today with our guests. Then we are going to talk about as many as 50 migrants who have been attempting to reach Spain by boat from West Africa might have drowned. This has been confirmed by the migrant rights group Walking Borders. Record 10,457 migrants, ladies and gentlemen, or 30 people a day have died tried to reach Spain in the year 2024. Finally, we are going to talk about scientists who are using tiny VR handsets, ladies and gentlemen, to explore how mice brains handle memory, because as you know, the mice and other animals are always used as test subjects in order to ascertain whether the same can be applied to humans as well. And they are going to try to understand the memory and navigation in the mice in order to uncover insights into disorders such as Alzheimer's. Interesting, and let's hope this reaps some positive dividends. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the day 467 of the Israel-Palestine conflict, the ceasefire that had finally been announced late last night by the Qatari side after having mediated between both the Israeli and Hamas side. But all is not really that well, because at this moment as we speak, the Israeli cabinet has not ratified this peace. We've been joined by two guests who will discuss more on that. In the studios, we've been joined by Zamir Ahmad Awan Saab. He's a foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much, Zamir Saab, to have joined us. And online, we've been joined by our famous ambassador and foreign affairs analyst, Jamil Ahmad Khan Saab. Thank you very much, Jamil Saab, to have joined us. We'll begin with you, Jamil Saab. Jamil Saab, Palestinians in Gaza celebrate after mediators confirmed late last night, and we all were watching it, I'm sure you were also as well, that a deal has finally been reached between Israel and Hamas after 15 months of war. This truce, if it is approved, is going to be effective starting from this Sunday, that is the 19th of January. I'd like to understand, because this is as far as the latest developments go, this had to be ratified by the Israeli cabinet, but it has not yet been ratified because Netanyahu has held up the vote in the Israeli cabinet. I'd like to understand why, and what is your point of view as far as this ceasefire, its future is concerned. What do you make of it?
Well, ceasefire and its future, in fact, it's probably going to meet the same fate as it has been happening in past, starting from 1948, 1967, 1982, and all other previous conflicts and wars, whenever it has taken place. The Security Council resolution was passed. There were mediators. They also came in, and whatever decisions were made, that was never implemented in total. This time, around six Security Council resolutions since October 7th October 2023 has been passed by the Security Council. None of them has been implemented so far. So now this efforts by Qatar, Egypt, US, I would say very good efforts. They really made through a lot of hard work, they were able to get it through. Netanyahu, Israeli team, US representatives of both outgoing and incoming government, and the Qataris plus Hamas, they were consented. All the sides, once they agreed, only then the Prime Minister of Qatar announced the declaration of the deal, which is supposed to be implemented Sunday midnight. Now, within this about 17 hours of time, Netanyahu has found an excuse because Netanyahu, in any case, has a majority. It's coalition government, far right. We understand that far right. Netanyahu himself has that same mindset. But far right people, they are asking that we should not sign it. No, he's not so naive. Prime Minister of a country, and that to the longest Prime Minister. So he should have known what is the mindset of its far right wing or the coalition partners. So now there seems to be a second thought. They want to gain maximum. They want to deflect the demand of Hamas, in my view, which was agreed initially from both sides with the mediation of all these countries. Now they're trying to back out from the release of the prisoners, some of the prisoners about whom they had agreed, Palestinian prisoners. Now, so what does it imply? It imply one thing. And by the way, West Bank settlers, the Israeli settlers and West Bank Jews, they have really taken out a possession that the ceasefire should not happen. So on one side, the heirs and the supporters of the thoughts that the hostages, Israeli hostages, should be released and the ceasefire should take place. On the other side, there's a counterbalance. So I think there's a lot of slip between the lip and the cup. We will wait until Sunday. It appears that it's going to happen. It appears that the first phase might start, and the most probably it will start from Sunday midnight. Maybe one or two more points could be amended because Hamas obviously depends a lot on Qatar, and all the funding and all other support Hamas is getting is through Qatar and by Qatar. So they would have to accede to Qatar's request. And Egypt is right, on their border, and some of the tunnels they open in Egypt, whether in the knowledge of Egypt or not is a different thing. So they have a lot of stakes with these two countries, in particular, the Hamas people. The second, on a side, on one point which I think would be worth mentioning here, Hamas resistance for these 15 months, it is something which the textbooks would find its place in it, and the researchers would really try to explore how they survived against such a mighty military force for 15 months if the ceasefire takes place. 17,000 Hamas members, they were killed by Israelis, and they have been replaced, by the way, by Hamas leaders. And likewise, I'm not going to touch upon the Hezbollah and other axis of resistance at this point in time because it may not be within the scope of this. So coming back on the ceasefire, yes, there were a lot of efforts. Yes, both the president, incoming and outgoing president of the United States, they are taking the credit of it, and rightly so. They can take the credit of it. The fact of the matter is that it's the same ceasefire, three-phase, three-stages ceasefire, which was agreed, and the resolution of Security Council was passed. Joe Biden had taken a lot of pride at that time that he's the one who had propelled the ceasefire, three phases ceasefire at that point in time. But that didn't work. But now outgoing and incoming both were really thinking. Outgoing is thinking to take the credit that he was able to do it during his tenure, and incoming has already warned that before he takes over, the thing should be settled. Otherwise, all the hell would break on Hamas. So I think there are multiple factors. There's not only one factor that it has culminated just about 5 days before the oath-taking ceremony of the incoming combat. But imagine 467 days, now 3 days more to go. This kind of atrocities which had taken place, even the ICC has already documented all what has happened about the war crime, and we've been discussing it a lot. So I'll just leave that over here. But then 1,200 the health workers and 210 journalists, never in the known history it ever happened. The mosque and about 80%, 90% people are without food there and just barely surviving with hardly anything on them. If the ceasefire happens by midnight Sunday, 640 trucks would be required every day to really give them some nutrition to the people. And then 2.5, 2.3 million people, they were through the evacuation order displaced from their homes, and rest of it were bombarded. About 60% of it, 46 million tons rubble are lying there. It will take about 16 years to clear it. 50 billion are immediately required to bring the infrastructure in a position that it could. So all these things, what has happened, there are about a dozen head of states and head of
There are so
government. They
many
have
aspects to it all. There are so many aspects to it all, Ambassador Saab. The fact is that the priority at this moment is whether the peace deal is going to pass through by Sunday midnight, and that is what all eyes are on. Zamir Saab, coming to you. Elon Liel, who is the former Director General of Israel's Foreign Ministry, believes that the Israeli cabinet will vote in favor of this deal despite threats from the far right like Smotrich and Ben Gvir. But he noted that the second stage of the ceasefire deal, which is intended to bring a permanent end to the war, is far less certain. He said, and I quote, "In 42 days, who knows what the region will look like." What's your take on that? Do you agree that the first stage might be agreed upon as far as the ceasefire deal is concerned by the Israeli cabinet, but when it comes to the second stage, we don't know?
How I look at the situation, because Israel's main concern is to get its hostages released. Their main purpose is only that one. The first stage, I think they will implement, and the Israeli cabinet will approve it, because at least Netanyahu is the prime minister. He has some power, and he is leading the cabinet, so he has some ways to get it approved. So the first stage will be implemented. In the second stage also, to some extent, it will be implemented till all the hostages will be released. Once all the hostages are released, then there are things may be changed. And Israeli Foreign Office has predicted that what will be the situation of this region, because rapidly changes are happening in the region, globally and especially in this region. If you see Ukraine war comes to an end, there will be a different scenario. If Iran and Russia get strategic partnership, the scenario will be different. Syrian revolutionary government, I mean, all these changes, and what is happening in Lebanon, the new prime minister and the president. I mean, this region.
The Middle East also changing very, very rapidly.
Very rapidly. Even that the close allies, the traditional allies are changing their sides, and enemies are becoming friends. I mean, the changes are happening rapidly.
Are quite consequent. Netanyahu's office says it will not issue a statement as far as the ceasefire deal is concerned till all the details are being worked out. It is also now that it has been, officially announced, accusing Hamas of backtracking on previous understandings, as Jamil Saab also pointed out, to dictate which Palestinian prisoners should be released in exchange for the Israeli captives. Now, the Israeli Security Cabinet, as we have just told you, is still not has not ratified or passed because it has been held up by Netanyahu. Do you feel by the midnight of the 19th, that is this Sunday, the deal will pass through at least the first stage of it?
You know what happened in the Doha? The negotiations started since beginning of the conflict, and there were intensive consultation. Secretary of the State Blinken has visited the region how many times, and all the CIA chief and the Qatari government and Saudi government and the Egyptian government were involved. There were intensive consultation, and finally this Qatari government has announced this the reach of this agreement is due to some pressures. We don't specify to which pressures, but it was in haphazard and under pressures. So the first stage of the deal, first phase of the deal will be implemented, I believe.
All right.
Either in pressure.
Maybe it might be possible that they will agree to it all, and then once the first stage is over,
Yes,
then they might backtrack.
they might be back. And especially looking at the behavior of Israel, they are always changing their mind, and they don't accept any power like United Nations.
We remember all the previous
obligations.
deals
Yes,
that were
yes,
also
yes,
put
yes.
forward. They were never accepted by Israel. Jamil Saab, there is also a huge political angle to these delays that have been happening as far as any deal between Israel and Hamas is concerned. Israeli Member of Parliament Avigdor Lieberman, who leads the right-wing party, says and accuses Netanyahu of blocking a single-stage ceasefire deal that could have released all the Israeli prisoners at once. He says the reason for opting for a phased deal is to preserve Netanyahu's governing coalition. Is there a heavy political angle and this Netanyahu's survival and sustainability when it comes to this ceasefire deal? Jamil Saab, can you please unmute your side so that we can hear you?
Yes. Netanyahu definitely has monetized this war in his favor. He was politically very shaky to start with. Perhaps he would have been behind the bar if this war would not have prolonged, or if I hardly call it war, if that aggression of Israel had not continued, Netanyahu would have been perhaps behind the bar the way things were shaping up in Israel. But now, at the same time, in the eyes of right-wing people, Netanyahu, in many respects, became hero. That he has really been saying that Israel only military action, only way to achieve the goals, and unless we achieve the goal, we are not going to stop, or we are not going to have any ceasefire, any deal. By the way, the other points which behind the curtain they've been discussing, it appears there are certain indications in certain literature that they want Gaza to continue to be under their control, the Israelis' control. I think by far Hamas is not really agreeing to it, because Hamas is not getting the legitimacy was that Hamas had formed its legitimate government through the election, and Israel at that time had no objection to it. In fact, it was serving the purpose of Israel, because Israel wanted one-state theory, and Hamas also was in favor of one-state theory. Palestinian Authority was, pursuing Oslo Accord and two-state theory. So, to the extent once Israel thought that their purpose is also resolved, but it only happened once the Hamas, they used their right of resistance against the occupier, and they what happened on 7th of October. Thereafter, Israel and Netanyahu politically capitalized it, and number two, internationally exploited it. But internationally exploited, what I mean by that is the US and its allies, US, the Israeli lobby, they became very active, and they got all what they wanted to, 85 tons of the bombs and explosive they got, and it was used, the depleted uranium, is used for the precision bombing, and that was used. It has its effect and impact for decades in that area. And there's a whole lot of health impact on that. But at some other stage, I'll describe that. But yes, you're right. Netanyahu has taken an advantage. If there is another angle and another factor, US at this point in time, even the incoming Trump administration, as we understand, the Trump administration representative, the NY, the forthcoming representative, forthcoming administration of Trump, he was there in Qatar alongside the Biden administration, because that's what the tradition is, that the outgoing and incoming the ministers and the secretaries, they pair themselves, they start doing handshaking over together and start doing the transition together. So they were there. So this was brokered with the concurrence of Trump, with the concurrence of Biden, But there is one very important factor, which is a geopolitical factor, Iran factor. I think we are not really discussing that in most of the deliberations. And Iran had very clearly described it to the world that Iran reserved the right to attack again Israel using its United Nations Charter Article 51 because what had happened in Lebanon, Nasrallah, and for Yahya, for the Hamas leader who was assassinated on the soil of Iran. So that although there was exchange of some missiles on that, but still they had their reserve. So what information was pouring in was that Iran wanted to now they were all set to retaliate if the peace deal had not, if the war had not stopped.
So this is an angle that you feel that needs to be explored a bit more, as you say, Jamil Saab, the Iran angle as to its retaliation, and now that this ceasefire deal has been put forward and accepted by parties, apparently till it is accepted by the Israeli cabinet as well, that has put a hold on the retaliatory action that Iran could take. I mean, the could factor is still there, but it is an angle that needs to be explored more. Thank you very much, Jamil Ahmad Khan Saab, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the peace deal, the different repercussions, positive, negative, as far as the future of this peace deal is concerned. Zamir Saab, our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab tweets, the people of Pakistan join me in welcoming the announcement of this long-awaited ceasefire. He appreciates the tireless efforts of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, US, Egypt and other international partners. He says what is very important is the provision of humanitarian assistance that is required now. And he says we hope the ceasefire agreement will be honored in letter and spirit. Also, he says, he talks about the solidarity that Pakistan has, the Pakistani people have with their Palestinian brethren, and the reaffirmation of the two-state solution that Pakistan has called on, again through this tweet by our Premier. What's your take on all the important points that have been highlighted in this tweet?
In fact, it is not only his personal point of view, it is the principal stance. The whole Muslim Ummah, OIC, have the same feeling. And I believe that all the Muslim nations have the same feeling, and they want it to be happen the same way how they have decided. Unfortunately, we are worried or concerned about the other side, the Israeli side, because in Israel there are some extremist parties and some extremist groups, and they might force Netanyahu.
And they are also part of those extremist groups in the cabinet
in
as
the
well.
cabinet, yes. But anyhow, when the negotiation was happening in Doha, who was representing the government of Israel is fully empowered to reach this decision. So it is their responsibility to get the cabinet convinced and approve this one.
That is so true. But we'll wait and see till the midnight of the 19th of Sunday on whether the Israeli cabinet approves it or not, or whether it approves it in parts, whether it approves it in full for all the three stages, and what happens henceforth, because all eyes right now are on the Israeli side, now that Hamas has agreed to it, now that Qatar has mediated and the US has mediated as well, and the mediation has come from both the sides, from Joe Biden as well as from Donald Trump, and both are taking the claims for it.
We should be optimistic, but we should be ready for all the consequences.
All right, we should be ready for all the consequences. Speaking of one of the main backers of Israel is the United States of America. Now, the outgoing president of the US addressed his people for the very last time in a 15-minute address, in which in this farewell address he highlighted many important factors that we hadn't heard him talk of in the past. We have been joined by Syed Muhammad Ali. He's a lecturer at Johns Hopkins University, to discuss more on that, and of course Zamir Saab continues to join us for this segment as well. Ali, thank you very much to have joined. It's a pleasure to see you after a long hiatus. Let's begin. Joe Biden, in his farewell address, warns his nation about an oligarchy of the ultra-wealthy taking root in the country, and a tech industrial complex that is infringing on Americans' rights and the future of democracy. Why now? Why in his farewell address? Why didn't he make give these warnings in the past? And of course, we all know that a lot of these warnings are substantiated, but nevertheless, why use his farewell address to warn the public?
Well, because that's all he can do. I mean, the Democrats thought that they had found. I mean, first he wanted to come back when his chances seemed to have diminished after that debacle, public debate debacle. You know, then there was a lot of hope in Kamala Harris. I mean, a lot of money went behind her, and she's lost. So now, I mean, all he has is his farewell address. And there is, I mean, there is this angst now within the US that, a person who himself has amassed so much wealth and power is now going to, drain the swamp. And, the way in which he's going to drain that swamp is making a lot of the establishment, people in the establishment, quite nervous. I mean, besides the progressives and other people who fear his identity politics, but there's the sense of, the sense of vendetta with which the new administration might come in, and that is of concern, and he's sort of, tapping into that angst in his farewell address.
Stay with us, Ali. We will now be going towards the studio. Zamir Saab, when you look at the people who wield power now or have the most say, we've got billionaire Elon Musk, who spent more than $100 million US helping Trump get elected. Then you've got executives like Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, who have also donated to Trump's inaugural committee and make pilgrimages to Trump's private club in Florida. When the Federal Reserve data shows in the US that the wealthiest 0.1% of the country combined holds more than 5 times the wealth of the bottom 50% combined, doesn't it show a very inadequate future, or a very unbalanced future as far as the US is concerned? Will the incoming administration of Donald Trump be able to handle this, or is it something that was always in the making?
What is the capitalism? This is the system after capitalism. Only the wealthy people have the power. I mean, wealth, there is no limit. You can earn as much as possible. And especially in the era of the technology, the more you use the technology, you understand the technology, you utilize the technology, you become richer, wealthier. I mean, this is the capitalist society. This is the capitalism theory. I mean, there is no limit to cap them to have certain amount of wealth, and then they have to donate or give to the government or give to the poor people. I mean, this is the capitalist economy. They have no limit.
So when Joe Biden talks about an oligarchy of ultra wealthy taking root in the country, this is what he means.
In fact, there are two aspects. One is that Joe Biden was not happy with losing the election, and he has greeted the new administration of Trump and all these things, but his language was not supporting him. He was not happy from inside. After losing the election, he can congratulate them, but there was no other way to give them the smooth transition of the government. There is no other way. But of course, from inner core of the heart, he was not satisfied, he was not happy. And he has to blame somebody, and he has to warn his government. Before this election, before the Trump cabinet or his close aides, these people were still rich. Elon Musk was rich since long time.
Yes.
And during his Biden administration, he was also always rich, and the other people were also very rich. I mean, his warning at this stage is just
is a warning a bit too late in time. That is what I would say.
He's just venting out his own personal.
This is what I feel as well, Ali, and that is, I think, the same that you have also said when he talks of the oligarchy, or he talks about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex that could pose real danger to the country as well. He knew that since day one, even when he was in power, that the military industrial complex was an extremely strong complex that was getting stronger with every passing day. Is this aspect of his speech going to have any impact on the US public? Is it going to change their mindset vis-a-vis the incoming administration, or is it just an outgoing president venting out his frustration?
It's probably more of the latter, because if you look at the military-industrial complex, was it Eisenhower who had suggested this? And this was a president who'd come out of the war when America had geared its war machinery, to become the global military power that it is. But even from that time, this idea of the the enmeshment between industry and the military. I mean, think of GPS, for instance. I mean, came out of the military. Look at sort of aviation advancements. A lot of that is tied. And it's not only, when we think of the military industrial complex, it's not only manufacturing, it's also intellectual enmeshment. So if you look at many of the think tanks, you find them catering to the security establishment, catering to this particular view of America as a global hegemon, although the rhetoric around that may be more aspirational or more flowery, if you will. So that enmeshment has been there for decades now. I mean, post Jimmy Carter, with Reagan and the Republicans, but not only Reagan and Bush, but also Bill Clinton. I mean, he moved moved the Democratic Party from a somewhat leftist leaning to a very centrist position, and was very cozy with the corporate sector as well. So, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, I mean, we have Zuckerberg. There's been a list of billionaires in this inequity, and this is only in the IT sector, but this inequity has really tarnished, this idea of America being fine, a settler colony, but, over the past few centuries, really, like being a land of opportunity, and there's been a decreasing amount of social mobility, and it's been that frustration of the blue collar worker.
When you talk of frustration of a blue collar worker, I'd like to ask the same question to Zamir Sahab. Zamir Sahab, when you talk of frustration, another thing that I thought was frustrating from Biden's side in his speech as well is his indirect, remarks towards Donald Trump. He did not name him, but he
Yes.
did, has called Trump a threat many a times as far as the nation system or governance is concerned. But he has now warned, in this speech, he warns America to be on guard for their freedoms and their institutions during a turbulent era of rapid technological and economic change. Will America be on guard?
Of course, basically they are officially Christians, and they trust in God, and it is their slogan also, we trust in God.
Of course.
But practically, of course, the capitalist society, they believe more in money and the power. And America was always managed by the wealthier people. The filthy rich people were ruling the America directly or indirectly. Whether they are in the presidency or they are supporting the president, they were ruling. They were getting policies in their own interest. They were influencing whoever is in the White House because of their wealth. It will remain the same. The beauty of democracy in America, there is self accountability system. I mean, the people, if something goes wrong or extreme bad, there are think tanks, they advise the government, there are courts, there are a lot of other ways to pressurize the administration. I mean, they will be countered each other. I mean, there will be no, I don't think there is any serious warning.
All right, all right.
danger.
Ali, coming to you, when you look at Biden's era, you've seen inflation, you've seen a war, you've seen a consequential bid for re-election as well. But Joe Biden in his address does talk about the seeds that his government planted. He talks about all the work that his government has done, the impact of his trillions of dollars spent on domestic initiatives. I'd like to understand from somebody who is in the US, how do you view Joe Biden's era? What were the highs and the lows?
Well, I mean, some things that he came and tried to do, like he did those summits of democracy, but America's democratic credentials have been on a downslide for a while. However, in terms of his contestation with China, Blinken created, this kind of spectrum of options, if you will. So, ranging from conflict to coexistence to perhaps cooperation. We haven't seen much, and for, cooperation, climate was an issue, that there are still possibilities for collaboration. But it was, they did manage the Chinese relationship, although there's still bipartisan consensus within the US that China, needs to be, its power now needs to be actively checked by the US. However, and to do that, I mean, there was this, with the supply chain disruptions and COVID, there was the CHIPS Act, which was, trying to bring sort of the semiconductors back into the US. And it was a somewhat sophisticated, it wasn't as crude an instrument as tariffs, right? But trying to decouple at least advanced technologies, this reliance on China. Perhaps the sort of most important issue of global consequence was, coming back into multilateralism and coming back also into climate agreements. And now there's a fear that that reversal, which will have consequences besides foreign policy issues, will have, long-term consequences for the rest of the world. And within the US, I mean, he was constrained because the judiciary had all become conservative in any case. But, the Democrats do have, when it comes to rights over an individual's body, sort of the abortion issue, gender identity issues, there is a softer stance. So there were some of those issues, but it was not enough to, to address the growing angst of the blue-collar worker, what I was trying to say earlier before we got disrupted, because, from the Clinton era onwards, if you look at the Democrats post-Carter, we've seen a steady movement like towards the center, right, in the bid to woo the sort of disgruntled blue-collar worker, who has a more conservative worldview. And in that process, I mean, Bill Clinton had sort of cozied up to the corporate sector, and the Democrats had lost their somewhat left-leaning, right? And now you had Bernie Sanders, who was talking to that same angst. But the Dems, the establishment, didn't want to give him a chance because he was thinking progressive taxation, revising Israel, the policy towards Israel, and he was just like never given a chance. So we saw, someone like Hillary Clinton come to the fore, and now Kamala Harris, and Trump has been able to more effectively appeal to that angst, to that frustration of that diminishing social mobility, increased wealth inequality. I mean, I mentioned earlier, like, the Warren Buffetts, the Zuckerbergs of the world. I mean, it's not only Elon Musk, Bezos, I mean, all of them have been flourishing under the Dems, and now they probably get
Jeff Bezos is as well. The Jeff Bezoses of the world as well. Ali, the next question is addressed to you as well as Zamir Saab, but I'd begin with you. Earlier, before he made this address, he also announced this long-standing ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Biden's government is taking credit for it, as well as Donald Trump and his administration, upcoming administration. Netanyahu has thanked both Biden and Donald Trump as well. Who takes the credit as far as the ceasefire goes? Is it Biden? Is it Trump? Is it the both?
Well, I mean, I don't know if credit is the right word to use for what's what's been accomplished after all the carnage that we saw, and it's still a very precarious ceasefire. And even if there's a full-out there's not going to be a full-out assault anymore, the situation on the ground remains very tenuous. There was this sense, now with the sort of defense secretary, that President Trump has nominated, him saying that there's unflinching support. President Biden, I mean, his legacy, perhaps the most damning aspect of it is what's happened in Gaza and in the West Bank. And, now the growing restiveness within the Middle East more generally. And this is, it remains to be seen how now President Trump, I mean, he came in and he was like, get it sorted and get the prisoners released before I come in, or all hell is going to break loose. I mean, hell had already broken loose. And, the suffering is going to continue, the kind of contamination on the ground and the devastation we've all seen. But there was this kind of sense of urgency because Biden wanted to sort of close off his presidency with having some semblance of, restoring peace. And now Trump can come in and portray, this move as, him coming in as the great peacemaker. But if we look at sort of what's happening within the U.S., if we look at U.S. Foreign policies towards the Middle East, antagonism towards Iran, there's been a great change in Syria, and it's an uncomfortable situation there. And Lebanon is also, we've seen, attempt to stabilize it politically, but it's got dire economic issues. I mean, the Shias might not, continue to support the incoming government. And then what is happening within, the West Bank and Gaza, the situation does remain tenuous, but of course both of them are going to take credit for it, but the proof of the pudding is going to lie in, what happens next. And there's a lot of moving parts here.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. Thank you very much, Ali, to have joined us and to have discussed all the work from the US as far as these latest details and the last address of Joe Biden is concerned. I know you have got a very busy day ahead of you. Thank you very much, nevertheless, to have joined us. Zamir Saab, I'd like to ask the same question to you. Who should take credit? Credit, I mean, as Ali says, is not the right word to use, but who should say that he has been behind this final, ceasefire agreement taking place?
Biden administration was engaged with the negotiation in Doha for 15 months and could not reach anything. It was Trump's administration, not Trump's influence that has forced the situation to come to this end of this agreement. However, it was done during the tenure of the President Biden, so he deserved to get the credit. But more important that the coming days is the Trump era. We should focus more on how he will implement this agreement. That is more important.
All right.
And we are worried about that one.
All right. Thank you very much as well to have joined us, Zamir Ahmad Awan Saab, to have stayed during the entire show and to have talked not only about the Palestinian issue, but also, of course, because more or less I think both of these were interlinked, because Joe Biden leaving his presidency and Trump coming in just a few days' time, and the whole Middle East that now seems to be less engaged as far as violence is concerned. But let's see what happens after Sunday. Thank you very much again, Zamir Saab, to have joined us. Just stay with us for about 4 to 5 minutes till we end this show. Last two stories, ladies and gentlemen. The first concerning migrants, and around 50 of those who were attempting to reach Spain by boat from the western part of Africa might have drowned. This has been confirmed by a migrant rights group, Walking Borders. As far as the numbers go, as I said in the very beginning of the show, around 10,457 migrants, or 30 people a day, have tried to reach Spain in the year 2024, just that is the last year, while most attempting to cross the Atlantic route from the West African countries such as Mauritania and Senegal to the Canary Islands have been affected by and are part of these numbers. The fact also is that on Wednesday, Moroccan authorities rescued 36 people from a boat that had departed from Mauritania on the 2nd of January, and the group based in Madrid and Navarra said that they had carried 85 migrants, including 66 Pakistanis, that is from our own country as well. Next, finally, ladies and gentlemen, just talk about scientists who are using VR headsets to explore how mice brains handle memory and navigation. This is all in order to undergo different tests to see whether some new insights could come as far as disorders such as Alzheimer's are concerned. I know it's a very, mice and other animals are always used as test subjects, but this is how it has always been from the vaccines to now. Now, scientists at Cornell University are doing this. They have created a mini virtual reality headsets for these mice. These mouse goggles, as we call them, aren't just not to help them unwind after a long day, but they also offer researchers a glimpse into their behavior and the brain functions. This technology apparently has the potential to help reveal the neural activity that informs spatial navigation and memory function, which will give researchers new insights into disorders, as I said, just like the Alzheimer's disease and its potential treatment. So let's hope this gives us some insight and proves to bring to us some solutions as far as diseases Alzheimer's are concerned. Maybe this might prove to be a game changer as far as a new solution or a new treatment to Alzheimer's is concerned. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's Newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.